So good evening, everyone. Good evening from Mumbai and a boiling Mumbai, I would say. And I believe it is day in Athens and early morning, which I believe Alex must be cursing us early morning in New York. So boiling Mumbai, it was 30 to 34 degrees yesterday, but I believe it felt like 44. And today it seems a little lighter. So please settle down, mute yourselves. I've given that responsibility to Prakash Bhai. I'm giving you all 5 seconds to please mute your phones also, because that creates some problem at times. And let's start. So only women welcomes you to a discussion on the mental health of working women. Actually, let's just say women, not just the working women. Because whether it is work or home, women often get up in the morning, wear an invisible cap, we all know that, and then say in their mind, mother-in-law's medicines tick, children's school checked, family issue done, office document, oh, I need to work on that. And in this, when it comes to my own emotional well-being, oh, I don't have time for that. I'll look after myself a little. And that is something we all normally do, ignoring ourselves, taking us for granted. It begins with us. So I have no time for myself is something that we need to handle and we need to discuss, which we will do. It ends there. It is as if they have superpowers. Women have superpowers and are looking into each and every detail. And by the end of the day, the only thing they have not taken care of is themselves. I'm not saying that only women face challenges and mental well-being needs to be looked at only from a women's point of view. But today, we are discussing it from a women's point of view. It's also not a men-bashing platform. Let's all settle that first. No, it is not. They face equal challenges. We all stay together. We all live together. However, I would like to say that the balance is very tilted. The complete imbalance in all these equations is very, very obvious for all of us to see across geographies, across domains, in homes, in offices, wherever. And that is something we all need to discuss. Despite all this, women keep pulling on. And I'm saying pulling on. They keep pulling on and on with all that baggage on their shoulders, on their mind, trying to put everything in place. Because women in general have become very good at saying, oh, sure, no problem. When in fact, there is a problem. But it's very easy to say, no problem, we'll solve it. Also, a little context I wanted to bring over here, and that is saying no does not always mean saying no to sexual advances. It also means saying no to being given a task that does not match your abilities, or is given to humiliate you, or is given to just because men can do that bigger job better. So you come and handle this. Or sometimes because just you will not say no, so it is dumped on you and others can while away their time. So when we are talking in the context of saying no, it does not mean just to the sexual advances. It means saying no to a lot of things that affect our mental and physical well-being, which we will come to a little later. So we'll discuss all the superwoman phenomenon and its impact on our mind, heart, bodies, everything. But we have an eclectic pattern from Mumbai, from New York, from Europe, and you will, in the course of the next 1.5 hours, see what wealth of information and experience they bring with them. But before that, I would like to tell you a little about Only Women.
Hello.
So, good evening once again to everyone, and a very warm welcome to this special panel discussion. As we mark Mental Health Month in May, today's conversation brings together voices from India, the United States, and Europe to explore a theme that resonates deeply with so many of us: boundaries without guilt, the mental load of effective leadership, and the art of saying no. In today's world, women are not mere participants in the workforce, as we all know. They are steering multiple roles, that of caregivers, leaders, nurturers, workers. And somewhere along the way, the ability to say no gets diluted and at times entirely nullified. This whole concept of guilt and the pressure to prove themselves and to live up to expectations plays havoc with their minds, their bodies, their hearts. In today's discussion, we will look precisely at this mental load and explore why we have created or allowed others to create this web of expectations where boundaries just blur, where women become machines, and where human angle of deliverable is obscenely imbalanced with unfair practices at homes and at workplaces. Why on earth can we not set boundaries? That is a very simple question, which are to a great extent, if we agree, set for men. Quite often, boundaries are set for men. For women, it's really rare. And this is a discussion to understand where we are going wrong and how we can correct it. This is not a men bashing platform. We are not getting into that. It is not just about the boundaries as a concept. If I can begin, and I'm coming to Dr. Anjali with my first question. It is about the lived realities behind them, the invisible mental load. So, Dr. Anjali Chhabria, I will begin with your psychiatric angle. Women today are balancing multiple identities: professional, caregiver, personal ambitions, bread earner, and also leader in quite a few cases. What does this constant juggling do to their mental health over time? And why do so many women feel guilt when they say no, even when it is necessary? Dr. Anjali Chhabria.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me here, and thank you for taking care of women the way you are doing with Vdyottama. That it's brilliant to be here today. So, what has happened is that I think with all the roles that women want to play, okay, earlier women were supposed to be, not seen, not heard. Today, the women are seen, are heard, and are doing multiple roles. Okay. But with that, there's a lot of responsibility which comes in. And with responsibility, what has happened is I think the woman is wanting to do so much and do it perfectly. Okay. So because of that, when she's at work, she feels guilty that she's not able to give her house, her children the attention that she would like to give. Then, when she's at home, she thinks she's missing out something at work. And because of that, she is constantly trying to juggle so many roles. And what suffers is, as you rightly said, she herself. Now, what happens is many a times others around her can see that suffering more than she can. And what do we see is someone who's tired, someone who is, you know, even cognitively trying to do so many things at one time. Have the children eating their food, has have the in-laws taken their medication. I was supposed to give this presentation today, and because of that, her mental health, she starts getting burnt out. But does she realize it? Maybe not. She may become irritable, her sleep may suffer, and slowly she feels that, she's not good enough. And she's not good enough for anything and anyone. Her friends may call her and say, "Come on, let's go somewhere." And she said, "No, no, no. I have a lot of work to do. My children have their exams." Her physical health suffers because, as it is, especially in India, we have been taught to take care of ourselves last. The mother eats last. She first feeds the entire family. Then, if anything is left over, that's the time she will put the crumbs in her mouth. You ask a woman to, what would you like to eat for lunch or dinner? And she said, whatever the others want. So she has never learned to put herself first. So if you even choose something that you want to eat or a movie that you want to see, if the children want to see something else, there's a guilt. because she's just been taught to put everyone else first. But this constant load of putting everybody else first and putting yourself last, the message you're giving to the world is, I deserve to be last, and everybody else needs to be put first. So the
Brilliant,
self
Anjali.
yeah,
Sorry, I'm cutting you there.
no,
I'm
no,
going to
go
come
ahead,
back
go
to
ahead.
you with the
Sure.
next thing. Alex, I'm coming to you and I want to take this point ahead where she's saying in India, we are taught to do this. And that gives me rules to get into looking at the cultural angles. Now, you are a Nigerian actress. You're also a media leader. You've experienced industries where image, performance, and expectations are constantly under scrutiny. Do you think in such public facing roles, feel an even greater pressure to perform both on and off screen? And I also want you to the angle we were talking about, the cultural differences. Nigeria, US, and you travel all over the world. Do you think that the role shift, that the expectations shift? There are two things. One, the cultural angle, and the second is the pressure to perform when you are in media. So whichever you want to take first.
Okay, let's start with the cultural angle. And, thank you, Vdyottama, for inviting me to this. There was something that Dr. Anjali, she was talking about, and I think that's across the board because even though I'm Nigerian, I kind of find there to be similarities between the Nigerian culture and even the Indian culture because we are a community first type culture where really you put, even as a mother myself, I always put myself last, right? I've always put myself last. I think of what my husband will eat, my child would eat, and if we have family, extended family over, because I have a lot of siblings, I'm thinking what everybody will eat first before I think of myself. And so that is something that I see across the board that might be different even with I would say the American society where there is more of an it's more individual than it is community based, right? Because they've been taught how to have agency for themselves or speak for themselves or think for themselves or speak up for themselves, where you come from a culture where you put others first and your thoughts service as you're growing up. Your worth is in how you serve others, as a woman, how you manage the home and all of those things. Those are the things that I learned growing up as a woman. But when you talk about media, for example, and women who are in front-facing roles, whether in the arts or in entertainment, obviously there is pressure to perform because a lot of the times people don't realize that it's a job for you first, but somehow you're put already on a pedestal because automatically based on the work that you do, you become other people's role models, even though you never asked for it and you never signed up for it. Right? You just, people forget that, for example, as an actor, you're first of all doing your day job. That is your day job. But because your day job is in front of the camera and other people get to, you have a little bit more visibility than other occupations, let me put it that way. And your life becomes, your life is out there. There's a lot of scrutiny, who you're dating, what you're doing, what you said, how you composed yourself, even though you're having a regular life like everybody else. So it now puts you in a position where you are forced to perform or to carry pressure because not only is there, can you hear me?
Yeah, I think I'd lost you for at
There
least
was, yeah, one
For a
second.
for
moment.
about, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So not only is there scrutiny, there's also, there's a lot of scrutiny, there's judgment, and now in social media, there are people leaving comments, there are people thralling. I see how that impacts the mental health of others, right? So if a woman was going through, say, something in her marriage, if she didn't have visibility, she will be going through that privately, right? But if she has visibility, then it becomes the world's business, right? And then people now have opinions about things they know nothing about. If the woman was going through stuff, she could handle it privately, and it doesn't take away the pressure if nobody even knew what was going on in your life. But as soon as you have a job or a career that other people are privy to, then people think they can be in your comment sections. Then people think that they can write about your life. They can make assumptions about what's going on. That tends to also, impact the mental state of the woman because now she doesn't only have to deal with the reality of the problems or the challenges she's facing, she also has to deal with other people's opinions about something they know nothing about. And so that is, and when you think about it, culture-wise, it's pretty much the same thing. You know, in Nigeria, you look at I guess the difference is that um, here, I would say in the US, people are learning to stand up for themselves, right? They have more agency. They're a bit more vocal about telling you to step back or, respond. In Nigeria, the culture is a little different because you have to think about community. You have to think about the family you belong to. How does this impact your extended family? What is your mother-in-law going to say? Your grandmother, your sister, your cousin, second, third cousins. You have to think about things in groups. You can't just think about yourself. So that creates this. I remember, and I'll share this. I mean, there was a time in my life when I would say that I had my first marriage, for example. It was very short. And I had to raise my child by myself before I, remarried. And I remember as an actor, I had to stop going out. I stopped going to the red carpet because when I went out to events, they would say, "Hey, how's your marriage going?" And I'm like, I don't want to say anything, so I have to lie. I'd be like, "Oh, my husband, he's fine. We're good. We're good." And I was doing that for a long time because I couldn't really say what was going on. But at the same time, I couldn't not did so I was lying. And then one day I said, you know what, I'm tired of lying, so I'm just gonna stop going out. I don't want people to ask me any questions. I don't want to answer anything. I don't want to look at anybody. I'll just stop showing up. And I stopped going out. But what was happening was I was becoming depressed and depressed and depressed because I wanted to be out there like my colleagues doing things, but I couldn't do it because I knew that whatever I said was going to be used against me. It was going to make front page news the next day. And, people are going to speculate about your life. So these are realities that people deal with. And of course, being in front of the screen, or just having some type of visibility creates, adds more pressure.
Thank you. Thank you. Quite a few brilliant points are coming through the speakers, and I am going to extend Alex's point to you, Maria. Remember when you and I met for that panel discussion on diversity at Athens about 1.5 years ago? And there were women from all geographies, from the US, from Asia, from Europe, and different places. All of us felt that ultimately, whatever the culture, as Alex also was saying, problems are the same. Give or take a few, but mainly the women face the same problem. So I want to ask you, each geography comes with its unique challenges and plus points. How much of boundary setting is shaped by culture, in your opinion? And when you and I met in Athens, as I told you, we know what we all discussed. Do share in brief what structural changes are still missing in Europe that prevent women from setting boundaries confidently. So does Europe face that boundaries problem, and what are the structural differences and challenges that they face? Maria.
Thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to see all these beautiful ladies. And I would really like to have some men also attending this panel.
There are. Okay. The panel next time. Next time we'll do that.
Now, as a female entrepreneur in Europe, considering that Europe is regarded as quite an advanced gender equality region, I believe that currently we are at a crossroad because many organizations have mastered the language of inclusion, but very few have actually embedded this inclusion issue into leadership, pay equity, hiring, or decision making. So too often, diversity becomes an exercise, a marketing exercise. We have policed campaigns, how many women we have within the organization. We have women on the panels for the International Women's Day talking about that. While in the meantime, within the boardrooms and the power structures, you don't have many changes actually happened. So even though the reality is that genuine inclusion is measurable, it can be funded. It is how you promote women. It is how you retain women. Still, we struggle with access to leadership, to equal pay, or to investment opportunities, because I'm an entrepreneur and I can see the difference between me asking for an investment to start my business versus a male. So this diversity, equity, inclusion commitment, I believe it is largely more performative. It is an act. Okay. So what worries me is that now we are seeing a backlash where companies quietly rebrand or scale back the diversity efforts under political pressure rather than deepen them. So even though in Europe we have this law that obliges big organizations to have at least 40% of women on the boardrooms, what we see is that there is this backlash where men come and say, yes, but women are not competitive enough, or they don't know how to handle issues at the board level. So we have a conflict over there. And they say, so you enforce us to have women, even though they are not trained to be in that position. So we take randomly somewhat for no reason. So they come now as men and say, so this is fair because you speak about inequality. So if it is okay for you, I would like, and if it is possible, I would like to share my screen and give you an idea if it is possible. Let me open something for you to see. Sorry for that. It is not planned, but I believe that it is a good idea for you to understand something. I don't know if you can see my
Yeah,
screen.
we can.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So this, you know, the 17 goals from the United Nations, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So this picture is a live picture of where we are today with the goal number 5, which is gender equality. So wherever you see green, it is that this SDG is achieved. So there you have good gender equality. And actually, I know that, for example, in Sweden or in Norway, yes, there is actual equality. Then you see in light yellow that, okay, changes remain. And then you see with the red what is happening to the rest of the world, along with the deep orange. So when we speak about gender equality, these are the actual data from the countries where we are. So I believe it is rather unfair when, in the corporate world at least, we are talking about gender equality, and you have the backlash of the people saying that there is not a need to do that.
Okay.
And I always say, because this goal, sorry, and I will finish. They always say, oh, so why do they put gender equality and not diversity equality? And I always tell to them, in the boards where I consult, I say, if 0.5% of the population is inequality, is facing inequality, how we speak about equality when it comes to religion, to sexual, preferences? Half of the population is not equal. So we need to start from there.
Yeah, I agree with you. And brilliant. Thank you for showing us, because I could notice that when you were talking about in your map, India was all red and it gave me a heart attack. I said, oh my God. So I don't know. Are these figures really, really the latest authentic or something? Then I believe we in India have to really, really work towards something more positive. I really had a heart attack. I hope you couldn't see me because Maria's screen was being shared. But anyway, thank you so much, Maria. I wanted to come to you with another question. I'll come to you a little later. I will now move on to Major Sukriti Shukla. Sukriti, you've been a senior HR and DEI leader. So we were talking about diversity with Maria just a while ago. You've been a DEI leader for very long. You've been an HR leader for very long. I'm very keen to know, how safe do women actually feel while reporting concerns, whether related to harassment or workplace bias? And we all know that there is workplace bias. Everybody knows, and we all in various domains, we have experienced that. Also, I would want to know, has there been any time when you yourself have felt that the office ecosystem failed you? That you wanted to take side of the woman, but your management did not want to take the side of the woman and you felt that perhaps because of the systems you failed. So what was your recourse in that case, if that? So,
So I would say yes and no. So both the realities they coexist with Uttama, and it basically depends the reporting on the culture of the organization, which emanates actually from the leadership, from the promoters or the owners, and the entire culture. So a lot of times when it comes to women now, if we go gender specific women, majority of them, they do not report. And why they do not report, there are reasons. Most of the times they have hesitation or apprehensions that will they be taken seriously, or they will be seen as overreacting. Will they be labeled as difficult, or will actually anything change or so? And also, at times we have seen that once they report in the organizations where culture do not support them, there is a subtle or you can say a hidden retaliation sometimes. So hidden retaliation in what form? So possibly they are not looked upon in the meetings or so in a very high frame. There are critical comments or ignorance, the extreme ignorance. At times they are socially isolated within the teams. So or you can say that they are excluded from the key projects, sidelined. So it's a whole series, it's a cycle. So once the report happens, and I have seen this happening, once the report happens, there is I mean, senior, especially in the senior leadership, there's a silence, there's a pause, and of course then this cycle starts, that is taking them out of the key projects, or silently stopping the work percolating to them, and slowly it becomes the problem with the person who has complained, who's put up the concern, and they face the unsaid you can say ignorance, or the unsaid boycott. So these are some of the apprehensions. Also, other apprehensions are that they become the talk of the town. So they undergo this disbelief. How did this happen? Can this happen? He's a nice person, or she's a nice person. How did this happen to you? So this disbelief, being talk of the, so the personal reputation also gets impacted, which women in specific are very careful about. They are very, very conscious about this. So altogether, these things they stop. And the yet another aspect is that most of the times it's with the immediate manager it happens, or in the hierarchy. So the immediate manager, they stop the concern escalation. So while all the policies are there, we are also seeing that the development is there. I saw all the red. India is all in red, but I would say that yes, progress has been there, but a long way to go. There are policies in place. There are, POSH, Vishakha, whistleblower policies, code of conduct policies. As far as HR is concerned, we have all these, internal committees are there. But unless you support the individual in spirit, these policies, they become just a mechanism. And
I'll come back to you,
please.
Sukriti, there, but you raised a very good point, and this is something that I nearly speak in all the diversity panel. There's something called intentional inclusion. See, it's very good to have checkboxes when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging. But that intentional inclusion, like as Sukriti was saying, that the moment a woman raises concerns or files a complaint, she's sidelined, she's not given work, she's not being given that kind of respect, she feels completely out of the place. And these sort of things, of course, impact us so adversely. And I'm taking this further to Lakshmi. Lakshmi, you too have been an HR leader. I want to ask you, who is responsible for change? Individual women learning to set boundaries, or organizations redesigning expectations? I believe that is something we ought to underline. Or are we unfairly placing the burden back on women? What is harder, to say no or to deal with the consequences that follow? to some extent, Sukriti has covered this. I want your HR angle.
Yes, thanks, Vdyottama, and hello, everyone. Um, who is responsible? It's very difficult to answer, Vdyottama, from everyone's point of view. But the harsh reality is that, yes, women hesitate. And gradually it's becoming very difficult to fix. But I believe in the question that you're asking, who is more responsible? As leader, we have to realize and recognize that it just triples down the effect whenever there's a problem. Leaders will have to act as an enabler in any organization. HR can't be responsible. A manager, reporting manager cannot be individually responsible to get the change. It's leaders' responsibility to bring the change. Leaders will have to recognize basically about posh. They just conduct these kind of training. I'm a posh expert, and I have seen that leaders conduct posh training, but they don't include themselves in the training, citing that there's an important funding meeting or there's important client meeting. We cannot be part of this training. And that's the problem, where it starts the whole sensitization of the organization process, because they
Lakshmi,
are not giving.
I'm just stopping you for 1 second. For our leaders from abroad, POSH is prevention of sexual harassment
Yeah,
Act in India.
I was about to get it clear, just to align with
sure.
our global audience.
Yeah.
POSH stands for Prevention of Sexual Harassment at Workplace. And in India, it's not just a set of HR guidelines, it's a strict legally mandatory compliance framework to protect women at workplace. So that's why we call it POSH, which is a mandate for every organization. So as leaders, we have to recognize, because the problem lies with leaders. We have to recognize that reporting or the POSH compliance is not just a legal act. It's an act of extreme courage. So we really need to move away from reactive compliance, where we only act when there's a crisis, and will have to focus more on structural integrity within the organization. I couldn't agree more with Sukriti and what you were saying, that I usually call it, we use this word very common at workplace, which is called glass ceiling for women. But we often talk about glass ceiling in corporate circle, but in my opinion, for vast majority of working women, the real culprit is what I call sticky floor. So what is sticky floor? Sticky floor is that thick layer at workplace that causes fear and silent anxiety that keeps us as a woman from speaking up. Even if there's any harassment or violation of boundaries happening, we don't look at the policy or handbook. We look for immediate help, or a safe place. But we feel, as a woman, whenever anything is happening or somebody is violating your boundary, a woman calculates what I call as retaliation tax, what Sukriti was saying. So everything boils down to leaders, where they have to stop reactive compliance. For instance, I'll give you an example of my NGO, where we do audit workplace cultures. And I always tell board members and leaders that you have to start sharing, the leaders will have to start sharing anonymous justice story. Show your employees that whenever there was a boundary crossed, action was taken, there was no retaliation, the survivor's career remained completely safe. Until and unless we start talking about this, we cannot bring the change. The leaders will
I'll
have
come back to you on this. Yeah. Your point on leaders is taken very well, Lakshmi. Yes, the leaders play a very big role. I will come back to you with further questions, and I'm at the moment moving over to Aninda. Aninda, there is a growing conversation around women feeling unheard and sidelined at workplaces that we all are talking about. But at the same time, I also feel that women have this tendency, sorry, who would want to kill me, to fall into the victim mindset. Oh, this happened because I'm a woman. Oh, I was not given this because I'm a woman. And this victim mindset, always trying to undermine yourself, also plays a huge role in how we deliver and how we deal with certain situations, or our bosses or our colleagues. So from a psychological perspective, how do you say that we strike the right balance acknowledging the genuine challenges women face while also encouraging personal choices. Aninda.
Yeah, thank you, Vdyottama, and thanks. This is a wonderful panel discussion. So first of all, definitely the women, they themselves at times play a dual role. They want to be the CEO and independent, but then comes the victim mindset also. No, I'm a woman, I can't do that. How can I do the night duty? But still, they want all the benefits at times. But there is an imposter syndrome, which is for real, which happens because of the superwoman myth. Every woman is taught to be perfect, and there are perfections. Then they refuse to take help because they are taught to be independent. And when they become the leaders, they become, of course, that independence from the home. And that comes at times in Indian culture. They have to prove that, yes, they can do everything and they cannot tell, like, if something they are not able to do. So prove themselves. They keep on overburdening themselves, and that imposter syndrome comes in. And definitely that is a, but victim mindset, that comes, that is at times, it is when there is a wrong definition of feminism people take up. On that only sometimes women use that victim mindset, but otherwise it's not the victim mindset but the micro interference which occurs at the workplaces, which is similar to the gaslighting that happens in the narcissist relationship, that your self-esteem is eroded gradually. So similarly, imposter syndrome, why it happens? First of all, any woman, if she goes to present a very good strategy or very good, maybe any director, like very good script she has, but a man will be given a chance, much better chance. And at times, I have even heard that if she will go on a maternity leave, how can she work? So that is the reason also sometimes they get shrink themselves, and they take a, there is always a, there is a bias. And definitely now we have seen that SDG chart also, the red and India, and I don't doubt that. It's very true. I have seen that on World Bank chart also, that there is an app called Strategist Intelligence. And in that app, you can map out every SDG and on which you want to work, and that work keeps on getting calculated. So
Okay, Aninda,
absolutely, yeah.
yeah, I'll come back to you. So before I move to Alex, I just want to share an experience that I had. You know, when I was very new as a young journalist, at that time, Alex, you'll agree with me, and I think Vinita is there in the audience, she'll agree with me, that there were very few women journalists who were ready to get into the night shift. And that was a huge challenge for the organizations. So I used to stay in South Bombay, and my office was in South Bombay, and I offered. I said, okay, doesn't matter. I was staying in a hostel. I will go for night shift. So once while I was walking at say about 1 at night, I was walking to my hostel from the office. Two boys came from behind and they hit me on my rear and they zoomed off. So that scared me a bit because it's very young, hardly early 20s or something. So I went to the office and I told my senior colleagues, see, this is what happened. And what shocked me was that an otherwise very gentle senior colleague who cared, he said, oh, you wanted to do night shift. No? Night shift. Then why talk about the consequences? So this sort of perception, this sort of mindset, we face even today, even today. And I believe I put in 3 decades in media, but this hasn't changed. There's something that we are doing wrong. Somewhere we are going wrong. Somewhere I believe we are raising our sons and daughters wrong, or we are creating some sort of monsters around us where we are to be blamed. And these are certain things that we ought to be looking at. But Alex, I'm coming to you. Do you think that women in media are still overcompensating to prove credible? Are we looking, and along with that, how does that impact the burnout? Yes. I also want your opinion on, are we looking too minutely towards a gender issue? Is it a gender issue at all that we all are talking for such a long time? Are we wrong in talking about it? Or should we look at these burnouts and these mental well-being issues through the lens of gender?
Okay, two questions. I was just trying to. So I don't know if you've ever heard that statement that an exceptional man is the average woman, right? I don't know if you've ever heard that statement where
I
when
did.
we praise men, when we praise men and say, oh, that man is a good, that's the average woman, right? Because the average woman is juggling, multiple things, women typically have to operate at a very high standard. The expectation of a woman to do anything has to be at that very high level. When for men, really, they doubt themselves. They're not even that great. They're working, operating at 50%. They will get, they will try out for things, but women have to feel like they have to be somewhere near the 90% mark to be able to do anything or have anything. And so, we burn out because we really have to juggle so many things. And we have to juggle all these many things and be great at it. You got to be a great cook. You got to be a great mom. You got to be a great, CEO or a great founder or a great, employee or a great whatever leader. And we want to do that because obviously, if we think about, we want the best outcome for our families. We want the best outcome for our communities. We want the best outcome for our society. We're constantly thinking in the collective, right? Not just how is this going to be good for me, but how is this going to be good for the other person, because it ultimately impacts. So because we're not thinking at that very individual level, we always have to put our best effort out there. And so when we look at the media, should we be talking about, is this a gender issue? I do think it is a gender issue. And there's a role that media plays in helping the discussions, right? Because if you think about the internalization of the socialization that we have now, why do we see ourselves the way we see ourselves? Why do we see ourselves the way, why does the world see women the way they see women? I know that there was something that, sorry if I murder your name, Sukriti, I think you talked about, and you said something about while these policies may exist, if it doesn't exist in the spirit, I believe, you have to have, so even if the policies are there, if the individual does not believe that women are equal or women deserve respect, those policies will not help. Because you as a person, you first of all, you have a personal bias against how you see women. It doesn't matter that you have these policies, as long as you put those same leaders, they're going to break those rules. They're going to find how to circumvent these policies. Who is going to actually execute them if the people who are executing them don't even believe or they see the world that they see themselves? So I feel like these conversations, yes, it is a gender conversation. And perhaps because of how we were all raised, how were we raised? How were we raised to see women? Where was a woman's place? I mean, I grew up, first of all, feeling that the woman's place was in the kitchen, right? When I wanted to be an actor, why do you want to be an actor? Why do you want to put yourself out there? Actors are this, they're wayward. They're, not there are all these conversations that you had because of how they were, or if a little girl goes, how many little girls grew up thinking, I want to be a pilot? I want to play soccer. I want to play football. I want to play. Where does the socialization come from? From the books, the storybooks that we read, the movies we watch, the music we hear, the woman is the weaker sex, the weaker gender, all of these thoughts that we have about ourselves, and how we were raised. Media plays a core role. And when we talk about media, we're not just talking about media in terms of press, we're talking about media in terms of the other different mediums of information or entertainment that we receive. What stories are out there? When you watch movies about women and stories about women, why are women always the victim? Why can't we see stories of warriors? Why can't we see stories of women who look like us, who are achieving, who remind us of the power that we have that we even ourselves have forgotten? So when we think about the books that we read, who's writing these stories? Who's controlling this narrative? Who's telling the stories? That's where we're going. So I think these are things that we can play a role in shifting that narrative. So yes, this is a gender discussion. It's not a gender discussion because we don't love men. I have a son, I'm a boy mom, so I have brothers. I grew up a daddy's girl, but we have to have these conversations. And as you grow up, you start to see the shift. Why is somebody allowed to get away with something? Why is it okay for the boy? Even as mothers, we have to even train our sons. Why is it okay for our son to rest while our daughters are cooking? Why can't we, give both of them skills? Why is it okay for our daughters to do the laundry while our sons are in bed or are in the room playing games? These are the things, these are the socializing. Why is it okay why can't we ask our sons to stand up for his sister when the sister is being bullied? These are the things that we start to train. I'm just saying that there are many things that they expose themselves to that women together can start to control. What stories go out there? How do we see each other? Where do we stand up for ourselves? how do we start to level the playing field so that people find, so I think it's a gender conversation, to be honest with you.
Thank you, Alex, because you raised some point that I always believe very strongly in. And when you said, why does the girl cook in the kitchen, whereas the boy is sitting and relaxing? And I believe quite a few of these mindsets begin from our home. So, Anjali, I'm coming to you. And so much we have spoken. So, I need the psychiatrist angle again. How can women practically start setting boundaries without triggering anxiety, and fear of judgment?
I
Because
think
the moment,
the first step is awareness. And, forums like these, give women, they give women awareness, and they also tell them that, yes, you have a right to be treated as equal. So you are not asking for anything special. By standing up for each other. That is the second thing that we need to do, whether it is office, whether it is the house, whether it is setting examples. And the third thing is by helping women to do things for themselves. And for example, if you have a sister-in-law who gets late and there are other people who start commenting about her, this is the time to stand up. You have a friend, and whatever has happened, and there are other people who are criticizing her, this is the time to stand up. And when one woman stands up for others, there are others who will stand up for you. So I think we need interventions, and of course, the realization that if you are happy, you can make the world a happier place. If you today feel guilty, if you are depressed, if you're anxious, you're not going to create happy spaces around you. So we need to not only stand up for each other, but we need to start practicing. So the next time you have to go out for dinner, tell your family that this is where I want to go, or this is a holiday that I want to take, and I want all of you to get up and do things for me instead of me doing things for you. We need to appreciate, but we need to not glorify our mothers. We need to not glorify the sacrificial woman. We need to appreciate, and also we need to encourage equality, whether it's in schools, whether it's in organizations, whether it's at home.
Brilliant. So this is a very good point that we should not be glorifying sacrificial women, because in India, I think for the benefit of Alex and Maria, there is a saying, Yatra naryastu pujyante ramante tatra devataha, means gods stay in the place where women are worshipped. So the women are put on a pedestal, and when you're put on a pedestal, you cannot be yourself. You cannot, suppose you want to have a glass of a drink, or suppose you want to just have fun, or you want to go, you can't, because you're expected to be that Devi, that goddess. So that's a very brilliant point you raise. Anjali, I wanted to come to you again on a question on therapy. I will go to Sukriti and Aninda before that, because I want to ask you later the taboo against going for therapy, that we still have in India. I don't know. I would also want to know how do they have the 5-letter taboo even in the US, which I doubt, because all your serials, Alex and Maria, all your serials and all show us so many psychiatrists sitting, so we feel it's very normal. But in India, it is still a taboo. So I am now going to come to Sukriti. Sukriti, is the mental load of leadership something organizations even recognize? Do they recognize that there is a mental load? Or is it still seen as a personal issue where, women need to manage better? There was something that you spoke about earlier. Do the managements care that their actions, indifferent to women's recognition at work and promotions, despite their capability, affect them? Are women wrong in expecting certain consideration for their personal responsibilities along with their jobs? So one is the recognition, the management does it realize what it is doing to the mental well-being of women? And the other is, are we women wrong in saying that, okay, I have a child, I need a child who's fallen down in school and I need to rush, whereas the husband is not going to say that. So these are very complex issues, and I want you to openly speak about what you feel.
No, so it's a very genuine thing that you brought up. So, as a woman, I worked in armed forces, and so I was not very in those days they were not talking too much about the diversity and women specific or so, but I've seen it's a very, very common sense and a practical approach. Give a work to a person what the person can or an individual can perform best. In our families, when there's a project, we always allocate responsibilities in family functions or any project that we take up according to the capability or the competence. So while we are talking about women, and do we realize that biologically there are issues, biologically we are different in handling situations. Maybe there's a situation which is looked upon by a male, and I'm not talking about talent is, of course, I mean, it's averse to gender. So the kind of hormonal construct of a woman and her reactions, her responses would be any day different to and so her requirements, and so her career mapping or the progression or the kind of jobs, the allocation. So everything, it has to be looked in totality. And I really wonder that, again, I'm coming back to culture, over here in the organizations where there is a sensitivity about this, that we are believing in what outcome, which is the company's goals or the organized, how are they being met, in what sort of allocation, what sort of work, what sort of roles and responsibilities. So I think we are not wrong when we ask, if my body is asking me to go on a maternity leave and I'm carrying a life within me. Well, I have seen companies who have given the best employee of the year to a lady employee who was on maternity leave for almost 9 months to a year or so. And I have seen organizations wherein the bias exists, and the trust is not there in the culture. So actually, I would say that we are not wrong. We are built different. Our responses are different. And there is no comparison. We should be given, or the roles and responsibilities should be averse to the, I mean, as I said, so talent is averse to gender, and we should be given the account. We are very much justified in asking what we are asking.
Great, great. So I am coming to you, Maria. You sit on the boards of leaders across corporate houses. I just want, and you've seen how they react, and you've seen how women are treated. Why is saying no often perceived as negative, especially when it comes from women? So when we are talking of no, I had said the context I had put down, and I will come to certain points a little later when I hear you all. Why do we perceive it as a negative thing? Because the HR leaders also here have said that the moment some escalation is goes to the management, normally what they think is they are sidelined, or they do not give you responsibilities. So why is no so negative when it comes to the workforce?
Because especially in the environment of the corporate world, you are expected to perform. In order to succeed inside a corporation, you need to perform. It is only about performance. So when a man says no, it is considered, this has also it has to do with the bias that was discussed before. When a man says no, they consider it, oh, he's a leader. When a woman says no, it's, she cannot perform, she cannot do it. Which is, again, it is based on these biases that we have. Now, the issue here, and this is what my position and my consultancy in many board of directors is, because I sit in board of directors discussing about sustainability, how we can proceed with sustainability inside the organization. But there are other board of directors where I am asked to do the consulting in order to get the women that are members of the board of directors more engaged into that. So there is the discussion that exactly because you cannot stop the bias, so you mention, okay, there is a bias here, but bias is so much deep inside our culture, the way that we are raised. So, for example, in Europe, you see a blonde woman, and the first thing that you say, she's blonde. Most probably she's stupid, because, it comes as a narrative through all the jokes that have been coming up ever since you are a child. So this bias, you cannot just speak about it and change it. So what we do in this board of directors, we try to change the narrative. So we try to train the women not to say directly no, because coming from a woman, this is something like, oh, she cannot do it, she cannot perform. So we try to help women in order how to say this no in a different way, and also the men to get accustomed how women can express their feelings and their position in a separate way. So this needs a lot of training, which unfortunately not many leaders are accustomed to. And not many women leaders are also not trained and accustomed to do that.
Thank you, Maria. I am coming to the end of my questions, because not that I don't have questions. I have at least 15 more questions, but I don't think we have the time. So I will come to Lakshmi, I will come to Aninda, and then I'm going to give you all 1.5 minutes each to finally say what you want to. So Lakshmi here, since we are all looking at all this rigmarole and the complex issues and everything, I just want you to tell, how can organizations move from inclusion rhetoric to actually enabling healthier leadership boundaries? How can organizations do this? What, as an HR leader, as someone who's into placement, everything, what would you expect the organizations to do? Lakshmi, you're on mute. Lakshmi, you're on mute.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basic requirements start with awareness. Vdyottama, awareness is very critically important, whether it's related to POSH, which is prevention of sexual harassment, or whether it's related to hiring at workplaces. Leadership need to understand the change that they have to bring right from them. In my work with placements, where I'm hiring people, and Sukriti also mentioned this thing, I constantly see what I call the reliability myth in hiring process. This is an archaic bias where male candidate has a family, he is viewed as stable and dependable. But when there's a female candidate who has a family, she is immediately viewed as a distraction risk. So these are the awareness that we have to work on. Then of course, prevention of sexual harassment. I'll give you one very genuine example of my personal, very raw example that I experienced years ago. 16 years ago, to be precise. I was actually rejected in a major corporate interview. It was a very leading radio station, because they asked me about my family plans. And I was completely honest. I told them I was planning my first baby, and that was currently going through active IVF. And because of this transparency, they saw me as a risk and denied the opportunity. They rejected me. They saw the medical appointments as distraction, my 3 months maternity break, that time it was 3 months, not 6, and completely ignoring my capability. It was not HR's problem. It was not interviewers' problem. It was leadership problems, because leadership curtailed this thing into the teams, that somebody who is coming with any kind of responsibility is not a good fit to be in the hiring system. They have been rejecting these kind of candidates. Similarly, to the prevention of sexual harassment of women, if leaders will not identify, not give this kind of confidence to women working in the workplace, that even if there's a complaint coming to them, everything will be treated with confidentiality, everything will be treated with no retaliation, nothing will happen, no change will happen. Look at the global Me Too movement. It was historic reference point, but it changed a lot of things. But a lot of things became a bottleneck, because people didn't find a way to go for structured complaint mechanism, which was missing. So the leaders need to bring the change with awareness within the system, starting with themselves, to the teams and at the workplace to create a safer and healthier work environment.
Okay. So leaders is something that you have often said, and I believe that is some point that we ought to underline, that it begins with them. Aninda, I'm coming to you last, and then I'm going to open it to all the speakers. And I will take you up on that subject where you had mentioned the concept of superwoman. You actually stole my concept, because that was something that I wanted to say last about, this cruelly coined term of superwoman, that telling, oh, you're a superwoman, you can do it. And actually, they're nothing like a superwoman. And if we are not able to do certain things, we suddenly start feeling inadequate. That, okay, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not able to live up to expectations. And I believe that's so silly. So here's something that I remember, when a woman says, it's okay, I'll just do it. That one sentence has probably added years of unpaid, unnoticed, unnecessary work to women's life. Oh, I'll do it. Because that every yes teaches people what to expect from you. I believe the brilliance lies in where and how we can say no, and that is what Maria was insisting on, that there is a certain way where we can say no. Maria, maybe we should have a masterclass with you sometime later. So this superwoman concept, as a psychiatrist, I want you to approach it as a psychiatrist. The burden it plays, please be brief, Aninda, and the way it affects our society completely.
Yes, but I want to highlight one issue. I don't think the issue we are discussing is only a gender issue. It is a mental wellness issue, and we cannot make men as a monolith of blame, because there are many toxic female bosses also, and there is a comparison. Of course, so first of all, men of quality will never be afraid of gender equality, and women should be taught. A true queen is the one who straightens the crown of the other queen, who without telling the world that it is crooked and it is tilted. So that is the true queen, and that is when women rise together. But there are many women, and why this gender-based violence also and workplace harassment? Because it is being generationally passed on. Oh, I also tolerated this. Why should not you? That is being passed on by our mothers, by our officers, even women also. Then there is internalized misogyny also is there. So this is not only a gender issue. This is a mental wellness issue, as because men also suffer at the workplace. So definitely, it's not a gender issue. I don't
very
think.
Good. I'm very happy you raised that point.
Men and women right. Yeah.
Brilliant. Very happy, because Sukriti and I were discussing exactly the same thing in the morning. And here I must agree that I've had some very toxic women bosses.
Queen bee bosses
Extremely
are there.
Toxic women bosses we've had. So yeah, that too also happens. Thank you very much. Now what I will do is I am going to give, say, 1.5 minutes to each of the speakers to now speak on the issue, what they want to and how they want. So I will begin the way I'm seeing on my screen. I don't know how it shows on yours. I think I'll begin with Maria. Yeah, Maria.
Thank you very much for this small talk that we had today. For me, a real change in the corporate world, because I'm talking today more on the behalf of the corporate world, women in corporation and in work in general. I believe that the real change will happen when women are not only included, but they are also seen, heard, trusted, empowered, genuinely supported emotionally, professionally, and mentally. And I will make here a statement about that I heard from a European Union leader, female leader, who said that girls cannot be what girls cannot see. And it was mentioned before. I grew up not believing that eventually I could become a C-level executive in the companies. I consider that if I became a C-level executive in marketing, that will be, the best challenge ever. I would have made it. It never occurred to me that I could be a CEO. I could be a member of the boardroom. So every visible woman leader creates a permission for the next generation to rise even higher. And we need to support these women leaders as long as they are not toxic, as mentioned before,
Thank
in
you.
order to be more visible and supported in what they are doing. This is what I believe about
Thank
mentally,
you, Maria.
physically, and
Thank you, Maria. Alex, you are next on my screen.
Oh, okay. First of all, thank you for this very wonderful conversation. What I would like to say, I was taking notes for what everybody was saying. So just in case, there was something that Maria said that girls can't be what girls can't see. I absolutely agree with that. In fact, that's the reason we started Jewel in Media, because we wanted to have true representation of women really running a corporation. I know I've talked about the arts and media, but we're also running a business. So I can speak as somebody who's a corporate leader, let me put it that way, because we decided to build a corporation where women from different parts of the world are involved in ownership of media because we felt there was a gap, right? And we wanted to break that gap. There was something that Aninda talked about, toxic females. And yes, toxic women exist, but they exist within the same society that created them. We have to understand that a lot of women have socialize themselves to operate within the manual that has been set in terms of the way that, for example, who are the leaders that we keep talking about? These leaders are individuals, right? They're people, they're individuals like us, men and women, who have their own belief systems, who have their own lived experiences, who are shaped by how they've been raised. So that they make up the leaders, right? The leaders are not somebody outside of us. These are people who've had their own experiences, who've become, who believe, or who have their own prejudices, their own biases, and create that collective. Now, we are operating in systems that were built by men. Let's be honest, the workforce was created by men. Who wrote the handbook of success, who determines what success really is. So as women, we have to decide, what is success for us? When we talk about work-life balance, does work-life balance really exist? I've learned to tell myself that something has to give. If I'm working, the moment I'm working, something is suffering. I can't be at home and at work at the same time. So I have to understand that something's got to give. And so we look at also, I think there was something that Sukriti talked about, biology as well. And she said, we if we think about it, men have a 24-hour biological clock. Women have a 28-day biological system. So we can't, if we have to operate within the same system with different biology, where, well, today I'm on my period, for the next couple of days I'm on my period, I have a 6 7 day period. I know that my body goes through a particular system. I'm not going to be the exact same way I was today like I was last week, right? Because I'm going through a clock. While the man's is on a consistent framework, his body's in a consistent, we expect men and women to act the same, to think the same, to behave the same, when the man typically doesn't go through anything that the woman goes through. He doesn't have to go through menopause. He doesn't have to go through periods. He doesn't have to have a child. He doesn't have to go through, whatever it is that, that you have, all of the things that women have to deal with. And so I think that we can start to sort of balance this when women actually start to take up a little bit more space, and to start to see that if we have more leaders who are like you, who experience things like you, who feel things like you, who know what you're going through, I have a feeling that we'll be able to create more balance. So, for example, we are running a company where women are the leaders. We say, you know what, we understand that you have to go take care of mom because mom has cancer. We host you, we give you grace because we understand what it is to have care or to need care or to be the caregiver. So, in other words, when somebody comes and goes, oh, somebody can't be at a meeting, we hold space for that because we know what it is to have that lived experience. However, when your boss is the male who doesn't have to do that because he has a wife at home, who has to do the caring, who has to do the giving, they don't have space for that. So I think where we start to create these balances, where women start to take up spaces in leadership, and women start to understand too that the concepts you have about being a leader, even the toxic female, for example, where do they learn that? That's what they believe they need to be and how they need to see themselves for them to climb the ladder. So if we started to understand that, okay, you know what, I don't have to be this way. Where did I get the concept of I have to be I have to pull people down to get up? That's that competitive spirit is not I think I see it more of a masculine trait than a female trait where I need to compete. Women are more collaborative. So if we had more women saying, okay, we need to work together, as opposed to we need to compete with each other, or I need to be mean to you because I want to be the only woman on the board, or I want to be the only woman who's leading the pack, or I want to be the only woman. I think these things come from socializing, and these are ways that I feel like media can help. So I want to just say thank you to everyone. I thought this was a really brilliant conversation and so much to take away.
Thank you, Alex. You could spare your time, so thank you very much. I'm going to come to thank you from Avriti a little later. I'm coming to Anjali. We're running out of time, I
Yep.
believe, but Anjali, I
All right.
want your wrap up on
Sure,
this.
sure. See, in addition to all that has been said, I think we also need to understand that women suffer with mental health disorders much more than men do. And we need to recognize that, treat that. And one of the things to avoid the suffering is also when we set our own ambitions. We don't have to compare ourselves with anyone. And we also need to be comfortable prioritizing. So if today my mother needs me, I need to be sure that I don't feel anything less. I'm equally good. I will go look after her health. Today, if my work needs me, I will do it without feeling guilty. And tomorrow, if my child or my grandchild needs me, I will do that. So I think women, all of us, let's support each other and let's stop feeling guilty. Guilt is in the past, the future is ours. So let's just do it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anjali. Actually, only women and G Women Media are basically trying to do that, support women, because I can see on their app, on laptop and on mobile, it works differently. But G Women Media is also bringing women together. And Alex, kudos to you for that. You're doing a brilliant job, and we are trying to do something from only women. Lakshmi, I'm coming to you. Quick for all the three next speakers, if we can wrap up and give your ideas.
Thanks, Vdyottama. Thanks for the amazing session. I'll quickly wrap it up so we have time for others. So I just want to give one very warm, clear hug and message to all the women out there that we are hit with pressure from job, family, husband, child, and the list is very long. We are expected to lead at work as if we don't have a home, and at home as if we don't have a career. So we have to balance it out all the time. And I live this beautifully chaotic reality every day. My husband travels out of town entire month, every single quarter. During those time, I'm the only commander of the house. I'm running NGO, conducting trainings on different topics, raising a highly energetic preteen mothers. If you are here or you have raised, you would relate our major KRA is to keep them alive, and acting as a primary caregiver for my father who has Alzheimer's. So in my opinion, we have to radically shift our perspective, as Anjali and Alex said. It is completely okay if you miss one sports day, annual day at your child's school. You have attended many, and you need to stop the guilt from your life. You have exhausted, could not call parents, call them tomorrow. They love you, they will understand. The guilt is something that we have to just let go from our mind. It is absolutely critical to prioritize yourself. And this goes to everybody, irrespective of gender. But it's especially crucial for women because you cannot pour from an empty cup. If we don't deliberately protect our mental health, emotional, or physical well being, the entire structure around us collapses. So we have to learn to direct our realities and strategic imperfections. My son doesn't need perfectly manicured, guilt-ridden mother or a Pinterest home, but he definitely need a resilient leader who loves him and gets things done. So believe me, on high-stake corporate calls, I have done this a lot of times. Zara blazer on top and elephant pajama on bottom, because that's not important for me anymore. I'm my only whatever is visible, I'm polished and presentable, and then I'm frantically texting during the call my son, stop using sofa as trampoline. At the same time, telling my father and checking if he has taken the medication. We have to prioritize and trust ourselves and let go of the guilt. And please enjoy your life, prioritize yourself.
Point well taken, Lakshmi. I'm coming to you, Aninda, then to Sukriti. I hope I'll also get about half a minute to speak.
I would like to say, of course, that boundaries without guilt are similarly, it is not selfishness and it is not a resistance. It's about your own self care, which is very important. Similarly, as I say, it is strength, that vulnerability is strength for men, as men don't show their emotions. So, and women should not be labeled for saying no, and it is not a weakness when they say no, that they are not able to do. It's the strength that they have this, uh, they have now taken the pen and then writing the script of their own life, and also are driving their own life, and taken the steering wheel of the life in their hands. And it is always, a genius is one who knows when to stop. We are the only one who treat others how to treat us, so in most of the time. So we should have our own confidence, and there is no harm in enjoying life is like an ice cream, enjoy before it melts. And definitely without men having crucial conversations, we cannot achieve gender equality. And even being the leaders also, we cannot shrug away the responsibility of being a caregiver and a mother. Thank
Fair
you.
enough. Point well taken, Aninda. Sukriti. Sukriti, you to mute.
Yeah,
Unmute. Yeah.
I would simply say that, quickly, that we have come a far way if we see past, but going forward, I think the only thing is that with that intent that we have, we are talking of diversity, we're talking of inclusion, we're talking of our rights. The only thing is that this intent has to evolve into something more concrete, because talks without progression are just optics. So going forward, if you ask me, I would like to see more of leaders. When I say leaders, women leaders, not just dragged out during their mid-senior level or so, but leaders sitting in the board, in the top of the positions, more of them. And so diversity is no longer a challenge now. We all know about it. What we are looking forward is equity, and as a solid outcome, equity. So that's what I would say, and I look forward to it probably 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, on the newer horizons.
Thank you, Sukriti. I think if I can add some point, I always tell, and my daughter is here, that ultimately everything is here. The entire world, your entire being, your entire code is here. Whatever the circumstances, whatever the situation, whatever the workplace, if you don't give up belief in yourself, if you do not let all the circumstances and people affect your basic thinking, and this is what I tell, believe in yourself, just don't give that up, and things do fall in place. Of course, we will have challenges. Of course, we will have people who deride us. We are all human. It will never go away completely. But this whole brain of yourself is something that you ought to protect. And that's where our mental strength comes from. I believe that belief in yourself is very, very important for women. I'm going to now just request you all to stay for 1 minute, because I'm inviting Avriti Sharma for a formal vote of thanks. And then we will, if you all are there, we will open it to certain question answers. If you can, it'll be really nice. But let's have the vote of thanks first, so that in case somebody is busy. Avriti?
Yes. Thank you so much, Vdyottama. Before I start, I would like to say what an enriching session this has been. As a young and upcoming women leader, I have learned so much in the last 1 hour that I will implement going forward in my career as well. One thing that has stuck with me is the line Alex said, that an extraordinary man is just an average woman, which is so true. Girls can't be what girls can't see, Maria. I completely agree. We need to set examples for younger women to grow, and for them to see others as role models. And guilt is in the past and future is ours. Definitely. We really need to move ahead, leave the guilt behind as women, and concentrate on what nourishes our soul as well. So with that, I would like to say thank you to our esteemed panelists, Maria, Alex, Anjali, Lakshmi, Aninda, and Sukriti for joining us. We have loved all our discussions. I would also like to thank our moderator and the person who has actually helped us all come together today to witness this beautiful panel is Vdyottama Sharma. Thank you so much for having this session for us. And I would love to, and most importantly, thank all the Only Women members, especially Ruma Desai. We're sorry we couldn't recognize you earlier during this session, but thank you so much for joining this session today. It was wonderful to have you all here, and I wish you a wonderful weekend ahead. Wherever across in the world you are, have a nice day, have a nice evening, and a wonderful weekend ahead. Thank you so much from Only Women for joining us today.
Thank you, Avriti. Yeah, thank you. I think I would also want to thank all the participants who are here, because you are the ones who make this discussion worthwhile. So I could see, Alex, that Clara has joined from your office. She was when Alex was speaking, she was constantly saying, "Oh, this resonates. This is very good," and all that. And I said, "Wow, that's some cheerleading." So uh, we have guests from Gujarat, from Rajasthan, from Pune, from Punjab, from US, from different parts of the country, and some different geographies outside India. Thank you everyone for visiting and listening to all of us. I'm requesting Prakash Bhai to unmute everyone. If somebody has a question, please, I am holding the speakers hostage for another 5 minutes. So you can just shoot your questions, because I believe they have to go, and some of them have to go back to sleep. So unmute Prakash Bhai. Anyone has a question, please?
Yes, madam, कर दिया, unmute कर दिया सबको.
Okay. Anyone who wants to ask a question here?
Unmute themselves.
Can I say
Satinder?
something?
Yeah, please. Who's this?
I'm Sonia Wazir.
Yeah, Sonia, please. Yes.
I just want to thank you, first of all. And I want to say one thing, that if we do not value ourselves, we should not expect anybody else to. Isn't that so true? We have to value ourselves. Only then we can expect anybody else to respect us, love us, even love us. Even, I would say, as far as even parents are concerned, we have to value ourselves. And thank you, it was so wonderful. I told you now, I was in Goregaon, entire journey from Goregaon to Chembur. I just reached home, and I could really, I loved the discussion. Thank you
very much. Thank you very much, Sonia. Anyone else has any question or observation before we wrap it up?
Hi, good evening.
Hi. Yes, Athens.
Good evening. Yeah, I'm Dr. Ruma Bhattacharya from Bhopal. Yeah. It was wonderful listening to all of you. And I would just like to add that, like everyone is saying that self-respect is important. So I would just like to say that self-care is a skill and everyone should, do it. Even starting now is good. I mean, start taking self-care, self-respect, self-esteem. These are very important things. And when we value ourselves, then only the world is going to value us. And drawing boundaries is very, very important. And like you said, how important it is to learn to say no. So refuse to be taken for granted is what I want to say. And preserve your time, preserve your energy for good for yourself, and then only you can do good to others. That is all I have to say. Thank you.
Dr. Ruma. I'm so happy that you've joined us from Bhopal. That's really nice for us sitting in Mumbai. Thank you. Anybody, Satinder, you wanted to say something?
I want to say, of course, we can keep talking about this forever. And it was a very well balanced discussion that we had. I just had one quick point, that it's, I think, not really about men and women specifically. I think it is all about how we think about ourselves. Because even men go through more or less the same issues and the same, situations that women go through. So it is not so specific to gender, though, because the way we are brought up, we end up in situations like this of prioritization and, perfectionism and things like that. That was my take on it.
Thank you. Point well taken. I believe Clara from New York is speaking. Clara, would you want to?
Yes. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I thought that this was quite a good conversation. Some good points, great takeaway. I just want to say one thing. As much as we have so much against us, so to speak, women are naturally nurturing. We're naturally by far more emotionally intelligent than men. And we know how to reach across boundaries and across, there's no stopping us. Look at what we're doing, for instance, the work we're doing at G Woman Media, of which I'm very, very proud, is that we can reach to women wherever they are. It's a global thing. Anybody and everybody is welcome as long as you're female and as long as you want to help, build the future. So what I want to say there is women should never be apologetic about their gifts. All of us have gifts. That is for sure. But if we all come together, build together, collaborate, and that's another thing we're very good at, if we set our minds to it, we can take the future, we can rewrite the script, rewrite the narrative, and own our stories. That is so important, because it is when we own our stories that we can basically leave a legacy that our children will be proud of. So very, very, very well done to Only Women. I thought this was fantastic, and I'm glad I
Thank you very
attended.
much, Clara. We really, really need these testimonials because we are very new, just like you, and these words of encouragement mean a lot to us. I believe there was one more hand raised, Rapunzel or
Yes,
something.
yeah,
Who was
I'm
that?
here.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
here.
please,
Sorry.
please.
Yeah, I'm just joining for the first time. Good afternoon, all the way from Nigeria. And my name is Ambassador Rehab Agomazi. I am the founder of Rehab as the Inspired Initiative. That's Raza Inspired. I'm into girls and women farmers. I really love this session. I'm so happy because it was Sarah North that sent me the link. And I'm so happy I didn't I'm happy I joined. I didn't miss it. I love it. I love when women voice are out there speaking. I love it. I'm dealing with women. I know I dropped my question on the platform for Alex that wanted her to say something about that. We are dealing with culture and how do we do the balance of the culture and globalization. Maybe this is another topic for us to look at. The culture is taking so much part of our women where you cannot they always look at culture first before any other thing. And how do we allow that for our voice to be heard? And also we have this pull down syndrome that I think we need to talk, especially in our cycles, the women. How do we handle that? I so much appreciate it, and I hope I will not miss the next session again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Perhaps we'll invite you for the next session. And thank you for your ideas that you've given. I think Alex, she's joined because of you. Yeah, so good. We have somebody from Nigeria as well. So quite a few. I hadn't expected this sort of response, and I'm so happy that all of you have joined. Thank you very much. Anybody else wants to say something? Otherwise, perhaps we can wrap up.
Because
Just a thank you.
I just want to add what Satinder said. Just one thing that, yes, it's irrespective of gender, the guilt and the liking and the enjoyment, because I had my differences with my mother-in-law, but to be very clear, I never liked her. But my relation was not too okay with her, but working with all my ex-bosses who were supposed to be male, now I like her. She's the best woman in my life. So after working with my ex-bosses, irrespective of gender, my mother-in-law is the best woman in the world right now.
I know perspectives and equations change owing to so many different reasons. Thank you very much. I'm not going to go to the next part of our program, etc., because we've taken enough time. Yeah, anybody wants to say something? Have I missed?
Let's start by changing the world leaders. The world will be a better place if we have women leaders.
Anjali, you said it. The world leaders that we have, I don't think we can openly take names over here, but yeah, in so many places, the world leaders are the ones that ought to be changed. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm so happy with this rich conversation that we all have had, no holds barred. Perhaps the next time we meet on some other topic, we will be able to break the ice much faster and take it further from where we have discussed and we have left this. Maria, you need to go back to your work. Alex, you need to go back to your bed. And we all, I think we need to go back to our dining tables now. So thank you so much. Love you all. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sparing the time.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
All those who attended, thank you so much. Bye.